And a good midday on this Wednesday. Roger Hill, VELCO Weather Hazards forecaster, the VELCO Weather Hazards Outlook. We're looking at a high-pressure system that remains established from the eastern Great Lakes across into southern Canada and across all of the northeast United States. This is a very stable pattern, kind of what we call a Rex block, with an area of higher pressure here, and underneath it to the south in the lower latitudes, an area of low pressure. This is a very stable weather pattern, and it will continue for going in until this cold front that's up here is going to be pushing in. That'll take place probably with that frontal passage not until somewhere about Friday late afternoon or more like Friday evening. And at that point in time, we'll change up a new air mass with cooler temperatures advecting into the region. In the meantime, this heat ridge of higher pressure is going to produce some pretty warm temperatures across our neck of the woods. We're looking at daytime highs in the mid and upper 80s today, approaching 90 in a couple spots. And during the day tomorrow, it looks like we'll see some lower 90s. The good news with this heat, and because there's no heat indices really to worry about, is just the plain fact that we have very, very dry conditions. These are dew point temperatures, kind of showing you what's going on here. All the more humid weather is kind of associated with the slow kind of rotating in across the southeast United States. A lot of that is working its way up around this area of higher pressure and will work in, and that will sort of aid a little bit of fuel for some thunderstorm activity with a cold front pushing toward the region, that taking place on Friday. Not a whole lot to see until we get into Friday, but we have this area of higher pressure. It's situated south of Nova Scotia, extends a ridge into the eastern Great Lakes. And as we run the computer modeling, you can see that it's pretty well established. It's not really going to go anywhere. Eventually, a frontal system, this is valid at 5 o'clock in the evening on Thursday, is going to start to push into the region, or toward the region, but it really flares its weather up on Friday. And this is valid about 11 o'clock in the morning, and then things begin to fill in nicely. And this is our next best shot of rainfall, and boy, oh boy, we are super dry. We really could use it. So this flares up with convection. There will be scattered thunderstorms. One or two could be pulsy. That is kind of what goes up must come down, as we have kind of a very low steering wind fields aloft, generally out of the sort of north-northeast. And so storms that form in Quebec will track into Vermont. Storms that are in Vermont will eventually track into southern Vermont and into southern New England with this setup here. And they're not going to be moving very fast. Wind fields are going to be very, very light, so not a whole lot of shear. So expecting one or two strong thunderstorms with some warm temperatures generating some pretty good vertical updrafts, and then some downdrafts, some wet microbursts potentially. Now this is valid in the about 2 o'clock in the overnight period, 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, and a little more of a regeneration kind of works on through, and then it begins to push away. By the time we get into Sunday, we're looking at some drier weather. So this is valid now into Saturday evening. And I'm not going to worry what the GFS is showing. I don't think it's going to be correct. We are looking at Saturday evening, things drying out. And we do have still some miniature low-pressure systems and a little bit of unsettled weather off the coast. But meanwhile, we're looking at another shot of higher pressure that's going to work on in. This is going to continue going into a portion of the early part of next week on Monday, and Sunday looks real good for basically getting some good project weather going back on Sunday, and also cooler temperatures advecting into the region. And by the time we get into Monday, late in the day on Monday, we're getting some shower, potentially a couple isolated thunderstorms, but best chances for that would be along about Tuesday, and so on and so forth. You can see that there's some sort of a cutoff low now developing here. And it's cold enough even to snow. That's well to the north and east near the Labrador coast. Now looking at the GFS ensemble centered on the Montpelier grid, we can see that this latest, most deterministic model in the blue here is giving us some decent amounts of precipitation. And this is the best chance, and then things do dry out a little bit, and then we get a little bit more unsettled as we head into next week. The overall total QPF looks like this. Again, the deterministic model is trying to raise that up above 1 inch. So somebody maybe gets a bullseye of some much needed rainfall. Most of the ensemble threads here are showing basically around a ½ inch or a little bit more than that. In terms of temperature dew points, This is the area to watch. Anything above, say, 55 or 60, this is we're in to pop some convection, and indeed that's what we're looking at. It's all rainfall. That's the good news in terms of precipitation type. Of course, we are into summer type mode. Now, looking at precipitable water, we're going to find the most moist conditions taking place, it looks like, on Friday into Saturday morning. And then looking at the convective available potential energy, overlaying that, we see that some pretty decent capes are advertised right here, better than 1,300 joules per kilogram. That's not looking too bad. That's some pretty strong updraft cores. And then shear is basically nothing. We're talking about 10 knots. So we got cape. We don't have any shear. We have some pretty good cape, meaning some hot towers forming, and some pretty good updrafts with that. And so we're looking at pulsy type storms. What goes up must come down, kind of Newtonic thunderstorms, if you will. Looking at the 7-day QPF total precipitation, accumulated precip, we're looking at about ½ an inch here, greater than 1 inch there, and even up to 1.5 inches over toward parts of southern Maine and eastern New Hampshire. Little different view of temperature anomalies. This is the top of the world looking down, of course, and this is Canada, Hudson Bay, Vermont here. What you can see is warmer than normal temperatures, especially into Quebec. Put it all together, weighted temperatures actually average a little bit below normal to our east, near normal, and a little bit above normal to our west. 3 days later, it looks like this. We actually get a little bit colder, and that colder feed of air basically is along the coastline and the Canadian Maritimes. And a quick look at the tropics. I'm not going to include that in the outlook this time around, but eventually we will. But we have a 10% chance of some kind of a formation west of the Florida Peninsula. That's it from here. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.